you speak to, well, to a topic that is huge here on Second Act, finding love later in life. Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. I want to welcome back Geraldine Brown Giomblanco, the author of Geraldina and the Compass Rose. Geraldine, thanks for being here again.
Thank you, Silka. How are you? Glad to be back.
Well, I'm glad you're here. You speak to, well, to a topic that is huge here on Second Act, which is just maintaining hope that you can and will find love after 50. That was, the major theme in your book. We'll link to it, of course. And I want to get your opinion on an article that I found that was really speaks to this topic as well. But in fact, I thought of you right when I read it. It was in Psychology Today, and it's 5 tips for finding love later in life. And this particular psychologist based it on lots of stories from people who have actually done it. Well, she should have talked with you as well. because you absolutely do that. Well, let's get into some of the specifics of what they recommend here. I want to get your input. Obviously, you went through this, and this isn't what the reason I like this article is not, how to online date or, these dating strategies. It's really about getting into, well, the right mindset for it. And number one, get comfortable with yourself. What does that mean? Why is it so important?
I think it's really important because, we all put off a certain energy when we're out. And if we're out having a bite to eat, whether we're with friends or on our own, I wanted to be me all day long. I didn't want to have to switch gears based on my environment. So I think when she's talking about being comfortable with yourself, it's in any environment. Who are you? And I think there's a transition there. We have to grow into that comfort zone. It's not something. There is another psychologist, or it was called the Johari window, and it's trying to get people to see you in the most true form of who you are. And this way, you don't have to think for words to express yourself. That if you're yourself, then you don't have to. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
yeah,
you
absolutely.
get tripped up because you are who you are. One example, and I just used it before, is that, I was uncomfortable because I smoked cigarettes at certain times. So I wanted to hide. So I wasn't comfortable with myself. And I had to eliminate that out of my life in order to really find the true self, the yummy smelling girl that I am.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is. It's an important point to become comfortable with yourself, or whatever that means to you, because if you're comfortable with you, then others will be comfortable with you as well. The well, here another one, nothing earth-shattering, but look hard and long to learn from your past mistakes. So many people just refuse to go there, or keep the guilt on somebody else for what went wrong.
The one that popped out for me, but I progressed as I got older. I spent way too much time with people I knew I should have probably moved away from. I gave them way too much of my time, hoping and wondering if they were the right one, when you kind of really knew they weren't. And it's like that psyche, you're trying to kid yourself, like, well, what else am I going to do if I'm not going out with this person? And I think that goes back to being comfortable with yourself too, because you won't need another person to enjoy your life if you're comfortable with yourself. That was the biggest thing for me, is I gave too much time to people that I probably should have had the courage to break up with them and be by myself for a while. And it wasn't until I got more comfortable with myself that I could do that.
Well, yeah, and in your case, you were single all this time. You didn't meet Mark until 50, and then got married. And that, well, it's great again for this channel. A great story. We have similar ones, like with Trevor. Then, of course, there's so many of us that have had failed relationships, but we won't look back at what do we do? How do we contribute to this? And until we see that or recognize it, it's very difficult to move into a new relationship, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely looking long and hard and learning from those past mistakes. That's the beauty of getting older. Do I want to be 20 years old again? No, I don't, because first of all, there's a million reasons. That's a whole nother show. But for sure, I appreciate where I'm at this age, and finding love at this age has some advantages to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then she says you'll become the person you want to be,
Hmm.
because that, well, if you're not who you want to be, then who are you bringing to the table?
To me, there are people out there that are changing themselves to be something that the society wants us to be.
Mm,
And there's nothing more freeing than being authentic.
mhm.
There's nothing more freeing when my husband tells me, "You're fun to be around because you're funny." I'm not funny because I want him to think I'm funny. I'm funny because I'm letting myself be the person that I am, and I could be silly. I could be that little girl, and I'm not going to get embarrassed by it. My husband tells a story of how we were out one time, and he knew he fell in love with me for this one of the reasons was we were at this tiki bar out in the Hamptons, and there was a band that was playing some music, and there was like a sand pit so you can go out there and dance in the
Yeah,
sand. And I just heard the song and, got to my soul, and I went out there and I started doing the robot. And my husband's like, "Now that's the girl I'm going to marry." Because who does that? Because I was
that's
comfortable,
funny.
with being the person. And 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 I think when you find the right person,
Mhm.
they're going to encourage that authenticity, not put you down for it,
Right,
and that is really important. And I think it takes, some introspective. You have to spend time by yourself to
mhm.
understand who is that person.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's becoming the person you want to be, really being your authentic self. Get out of your house.
Yeah.
As soon as you leave your house, your odds of bumping into someone similar zooms way up. Again, it sounds simple, but
Hmm.
how often are we stuck, or do we keep ourselves stuck at home?
I traveled a lot in my career, and I always have to tell you, before I got on that plane, I'd always be hopeful, and I'd say, "You never know,
Yeah.
who you're going to be sitting next to. You never know."
Mhm.
At the gas station. I had a girlfriend, I have a chapter called The Bride Whisperer, and I talk about all these girls found love when I happen to be with them. And I'm like, "Oh, great." Thinking, when is it going to be me? Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And one of them was this, we were at the gas station because my girlfriend was upset. We were out, and I said, "Come on, let's just get away from the place that we were at. Let's go. I have to get some gas, grab a soda." And we started talking, and these two men came up in a car next to us, and wouldn't you know, she went to go pay for the gas. They start talking. They went to brunch. They're married with 3 kids now. You can't make this
Yeah,
stuff up. It's the truth.
yeah.
So get out. Just be aware that it could happen in any moment at any time.
Mhm. Yeah, just believe in the possibility. That's a lot what we talked
Um,
about on the last segment. Yeah. Finally, tip number 5, learn communication skills that sustain relationship, goodwill, and resolve differences. That's spoken like a psychologist. I love it, but it's true. One of the main reasons that we have issues, not just for finding love, but then maintaining it, is communication that we bring to the table. Let's talk about that briefly.
Sure. I mean, in my example with my husband, we could have come into our first moments together, which was an introduction, by the way, just so the viewers know. We could have just went ahead and spent our time talking about our past and sharing all of that, maybe the negative stuff, looking for somebody, da 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 da. If we could, some people kind of go down that rabbit hole. So
Mhm,
curb the negativity. It's like
mhm.
that was one of the points she made.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Instead, it was just like, what do you like to do? The other thing that I have to give total credit to my husband as well is he's teaching me how to be a better listener.
Mm,
And that's a big part of communication.
yes.
And sometimes I get that little nudge under the table. I want to give him a karate chop, but he, he's like, let him talk, and he's right.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. That's a great point, listen more than you talk, and don't always try to anticipate what you're going to say, or the but word. Every time you use but, you're discrediting everything that the person just said. I think she says here, what you just said: give forth positivity, appreciation, gratitude. Love that. And then, radically curb your negative messages. That's something that you have to really, I think, pay attention to. Once you start paying attention to how you talk, I know this happened with me. Oh my God, I did say so. You just consciously stop that.
Yeah. So the other one was the differences. When you have differences in a communication, especially in a beginning or a new meeting, I thought that she said, look for the solution. Look for the solutions in the differences. Like, what can you come to terms with together in it? I thought that was a great advice.
Yeah, it's interesting that these are communication skills really that are maybe pertain best in a relationship. However, when you think about it, when you're out looking for love, what communication skills are you bringing to the table? And I think the point you made about listening is huge when you first meet. Listen more than you talk, and get to know that person. Plus, the more you listen, we've said this in other shows, the more interesting you seem because you're
Well,
showing
I just think
interest in the
about,
person.
I traveled so much with work, and I would treat myself to a nice dinner coming out of the, LaGuardia, the airport. And I didn't want to go home to an empty house, so I'm like, okay, I had a great week and I'm going to go enjoy that. And I would sit at the restaurant bar because I would never get a table by myself. That was not my deal. And there were times when I just wanted to be left alone. Honestly, I just brought a book. But then there's just that person will show up, whether it's a potential interest or something, or just the idea of having a conversation with a stranger.
Mhm.
And how do you do that? And how are you receptive? Because it
Mhm.
could be political, could be a thing on TV. Now we have a conversation, or there's a
Yeah.
sports thing and you have a conversation, or it's just, how are you? What are you eating? Whatever. But being open to other people's opinions and
Mhm.
ideals, and not trying to make everybody uh, fit into your little world.
Mhm.
It's just so wonderful to meet unique people that come from all sorts of places,
Well,
friends.
be curious, just period, in your life in general. And I think you bring a lot more positivity, to your situation. We can talk about this forever. Of course, we're starting to come to the end. Geraldine, if I were to ask you, what is your biggest advice for finding love after 50? Is there something that pops to mind as like a number one thing to remember?
You can't give up hope. Number one, and the unknown is what makes it exciting. So in the meantime, take good care of yourself, enjoy your own company, enjoy the people that are in your life. Just hang up all the hang-ups, throw them away, put them in the closet, shut the door, and go out and be your new best self, and watch what happens. I get emails almost daily from somebody saying, I read your book, you gave me hope, and I met my future, whatever. And all of them over 50 years old. You never know who you're talking to.
Mhm.
That there's messengers out there. I mean, I'm going to call them angels or whatever, but that is a big part of my story. And I can't believe I didn't mention it. That there are times, not that that particular person that enters is the one, they might have something, a good nugget of wisdom, something and I know so many people say that, oh my gosh, that happened to me at the right time. That person
Mhm.
said something to me that gave me hope, or encouraged me in such a way to take a chance on something I wouldn't have
Mhm.
typically taken a chance. And it's not like you ever see that person again,
Yeah.
but that was a big part of what sustained me all those years. What somebody told
Mhm.
me 20 years ago stuck with me all that time.
Yeah.
And then I meet my husband, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
It
It's
was,
interesting, you to your point, just how something so small can make a difference if you're open, if you're open to it. And at the same time too, know that what you say to other people can really influence
oh,
somebody for
absolutely, absolutely two-way street on that. And
yeah.
that's happened to me where I've walked into a shop and I hand somebody my bookmark because they're so kind. I'm like, oh, here's a little something for you. And they write back and said, you're not gonna, you're like my angel, you walked in, it. So yeah, it definitely works. And that makes me feel really great, you know.
Absolutely. Well, your book is terrific. I'm going to link to it. I read it. It's a fun read because you write it novel style, and it's very deep. It makes you laugh. It made me cry at several points because it's very relatable. So, Geraldine, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks,
Again, we
Sylvia.
can talk about this forever, and I look forward to having you again back soon on Second Act TV.
Thank you.